Hey everybody, welcome back to Joe Wednesdays. This is JHaubz. How are we doing this week? Well, for me, it's been pretty good. So Friday I went on another kind of evening adventure as Mom and Lydia were at home doing bedtime by themselves. I tried out this wing place out near Lydia's daycare that I've just kind of been eyeballing and interested in going into it. Like the building that they're in, it was actually like being constructed. I think either started during the pandemic or like just before the pandemic. So I was kind of curious to see what the inside was because I wasn't sure if like construction got halted or paused or anything like that because they opened up like pretty much sometime at the beginning of this year or some a little maybe a little bit before. So they were open like in the middle of the pandemic. So it was kind of interesting to I was just kind of interested to see what was going on inside. Um, for one, from a civil engineering point of view, they don't have nearly enough parking for the amount of people going to their place because they're trying to do from what I could tell, like they put this building on this lot that they're kind of hoping to have like more of a community development area. So there's like this like open plaza area in between, and then looks like there's a few developments that are going to be neighboring that they're working on right now. um, but there's not nearly enough parking spots just to hold the amount of people going to the one food place, and not to mention all the other places around it. So I'm not sure what they're going to do about that, but they're definitely going to have to do something. I kind of went in there and had I guess quasi first time experience of going up to like sit at the bar by myself instead of like getting a table or something like that. Um, Believe it or not, in college I wasn't that much of a drinker, or a bar caller or anything like that. So when it came to actually like going up and sitting at a bar, I'm kind of like, what do you do? Like, is there a procedure, or do I like get a drink and then go to a table? I don't know how this works. Probably overthinking it way more than I need to because no one cares. Uh, but I ended up sitting up there by myself. I got ordered a drink. Just kind of was like sitting, just kind of listening to people, watching them, and more or less just kind of enjoying being around people. And then I got the courage to ask the bartender if we were allowed to order food and then I got myself some food. So and again, who cares? But I don't know. I guess it was a little bigger of a step for me to just try something new in a new way, and I don't know if I can use that momentum to do more things. Then I guess yay. But I don't know. I think I'm overthinking it. I did learn something kind of interesting though while I was there because I saw an older gentleman, pretty much seemingly doing the same thing that I was doing, except that he had a purpose that I didn't have, and I think it was brilliant because he was sitting there. He had ordered a drink, and he had also ordered food to go, and I didn't know this before I got there, but he had ordered food to go, and then he sat down, had whatever drink he wanted, and then he got the food, and it was like enough for like at least 3 or 4 people seemingly from what was in the bag that they brought out, and then he finished his drink and he left, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a brilliant move. You can like if your family's ordering out or something, go to wherever they're ordering out, have a drink, wait for as you're waiting for the food, it comes out, and then you leave and you get this private time to yourself before you go back to your family. I'm like, wow, that's a genius move. Way to go, older guy. So I learned something from the old sage to my left that day. Um, but anyway, so I decided that after that I was gonna just go to a library and see if I could find I don't know, maybe a new book to read to catch my interest, that kind of stuff. Except all the libraries around here close at 6 now, and I was like, is that just like a pandemic adjustment? Or is that like a post-pandemic not finding employees adjustment or something? It struck me as really odd that like all the local libraries would close at 6. I feel like the library that was closest in my hometown when I was growing up was open till like at least like 8 or something like that. I'm sorry, something is in my eye today irritating me. Anyway, but yeah, I feel like it's like that 6 seems kind of early for a weekday, considering like, well, I don't know, maybe like since school's out or starting to get out, they don't need to stay open as late or something. All I know is that like my plans were pretty much immediately ruined because none of the places were open that I wanted to go. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, crap. So I ended up just kind of driving around Springboro because I was in that neck of the woods just to kind of look around. I found their high school campus. It also has their elementary school campus in the same place, and yeah. So I mean, like they at least invest in their schools from all appearances. It looks like they invest in their schools. Um, so then I decided I still have my tennis equipment in my car, so I went to the tennis court that's nearest our place here and practiced my serve a little bit. But Joe, you must be thinking, what about the cicadas? And I'm like, yeah, I know that they were definitely there. So, but here's the thing about tennis. When you're approaching, if you're doing a forehand swing, it's best to have the racket behind you before you're approaching your target. I'm sorry, I mean the ball. And before you swing. No, I know. Needless to say, there were more dead cicadas on the court when I left than when I got there, essentially. Because those things, they're big and obnoxious and gross, but they're also dumb. And they just kind of hover and sail on this like straight line that's pretty easy to clock them. So I did quite a bit of that as in between serves. So there was this family there. And it was kind of an interesting reaction. So two parts to this. The first part was these kids just kind of walked over and were like, "Could we try?" And I'm like, I kind of like glanced over at their mom just to see, and she wasn't paying attention. But I was like, oh, "Okay, sure." So I handed them my racket because they asked me if I had another one. I'm like, "No, I don't have another one, but I mean, you can try mine, I guess." And I had just a bunch of tennis balls in the bag, so I gave them 3 balls and they hit them, and I don't know, it was odd because it seemed like these kids do not get a lot of positive interaction with adults. I just kind of had that sense about things, and I don't want to, I generally don't want to bad talk parents now that I know just how excruciatingly hard parenting can be. But I mean, they were clearly parented in a way that I would prefer not to parent, I think. But anyway, so it was kind of weird having that interaction with them. That they seemed to like be baffled by positive enforcement when like they tossed up the ball and hit it across the net and got it over. It's like, hey, good job, there you go. So that was kind of an interesting reaction. It was also kind of interesting that like they just felt comfortable enough to approach a stranger or something like that. But I mean, like, obviously, like, I was friendly enough, so I guess it was good for them. But the other thing, and I have no idea who they were, so they cannot vouch that this happened, but I swear I served a ball into a cicada mid-flight, and I felt really good about it. It's like, I don't know, I've seen this baseball clip of a pitcher throwing a ball and a bird swooping in to the ball's path and it exploding. I've seen that clip. That's essentially how it happened, only it was cicada bits. And there was definitely another time where I tossed it up and there was one overhead that I caught mid-serve as I was swinging with my racket. So overall, as far as the getting back at the cicadas, it was a good day. But anyway, as far as the weekend was concerned, unfortunately, Lydia got some sort of infection. She was sick this weekend. She was coughing. She had a pretty decent fever, and she was having some shortness of breath. And Ashley and I were obviously a little bit concerned because if you look for COVID symptoms, that's 3 of them on the list, and we're like, okay. So we ended up just kind of giving her some fever reducing medication and just kind of waiting and seeing, because I mean, like, ultimately you could tell she was a little tired and she was kind of out of it, but like at the same time she was still playing and interacting with us and that kind of stuff. So whatever was going on, it wasn't too bad. More of a nuisance than like an in pain type of deal. So we were kind of just waiting to see how it was going to play out, whether it was going to get better or worse. But it did kind of bring up the question of, Well, crap. What's the procedure now if this is COVID? Like, do we still need to isolate for a couple of, or for like 10 days or 2 weeks or however long it was? And like, do we need to get ourselves tested because both actually are vaccinated now? So in theory, we should be okay. And um, all these other kind of questions that come up around it. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll at least call the doctor on Monday and call the daycare on Monday and see what they need us to do. And because like Lydia was still feverish on Sunday, so we at least needed to keep her out of daycare Monday because they need a 24-hour period of fever free before they let you back in. So Monday I made a call to the doctor and scheduled an appointment to get her checked out and that kind of stuff. And they were like, has she been around anyone with COVID and that kind of stuff? And like, not that we know of. But then I called the daycare and I told them that she was out with like, a fever yesterday and that kind of stuff. We need to get checked out. And they told me that like they had just posted up signs on a lot of the like the infant 1 and 2 doors and the toddler 1 and 2 doors that there was a URI going around. And then, then their policy about having to keep your kid out 24 hours and that kind of stuff. And like, it was almost like who knew finding out that your child had a URI would be relieving news, But we, so I told the doctors that when we got her checked out, and they're like, yeah, that's probably what's going on since her fever came down and all that kind of stuff on its own. So ultimately, Lydia's fine. She just had a couple of days of feeling a little grumpy grumps and wanting to get dad snuggles. And oh no, that sounds like the worst. Like so, apparently, if she needs some calming down when she's sick, she'll come to me. And whether or not that's all the snuggles that I want to get out of her, at least I get some. So I'm happy about that. And I'm glad she's feeling better now and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't COVID and all that kind of stuff. But we'll keep on kicking. So, but anyway, I'll cut myself off. That's all I got for this week. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
The black cats. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. We took ghosts and goblins and monsters dressed in green. Hello. How are you?
Do this page.
Do the last page. Trick or treat, little pumpkin, and happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Mwah.